Hi, so a couple of months ago I did a video reading a couple of romantasy books, kind of figuring out if I am a romantasy girly because it's a genre that's very popular and seems right up my alley that I hadn't had any luck with, and I thought I'd do a little bit of a sequel to that with cozy fantasies because this is another genre that is quite popular over the last couple of years, and also since right up my alley, like I love a good cozy read and I found a lot of that within like the contemporary genre, but not a lot in the fantasy genre. So I wanted to take a little quest in this video and kind of see how I feel about the genre, if I can find anything I like, if I can be a cozy fantasy girly. So that's what we're doing today. I read 3 books for this video, and I do have to say that compiling a TBR for this video was a bit difficult because I feel like there was a lot of discussion about what counts as cozy fantasy, but all 3 of these books at a certain point I have seen marketed as cozy fantasy, so I would argue that that's good enough. So the first book that I read for this video is Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries by Fawcett. This is a really popular one. It also has a romance storyline in it as well. I've been wanting to read this series for so long, so I thought this was the perfect opportunity to do so. Then I also read Bookshops and Bonedust by Baldree. This is a prequel novel to Legends and Love Days, which I have read. I read that a couple of years ago. I liked it, but I didn't really get that like cozy nice vibe from it that I feel like most cozy fantasies are supposed to give you. But I've been very intrigued to read more in this series, so I thought Bookshops and Bonedust would be a perfect thing to include in here, especially because I feel like Legend and Lattes is like the book which started off this cozy fantasy trend, so I feel like I had to include the sequel to it, you know? And then the one that I think might be the least cozy fantasy, but like I said, I've seen this marketed as cozy fantasy before, so it's included, is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Sanderson. This is a book that I've also been wanting to read for a while because I've just heard great things about it, even from people who like aren't that into Sanderson. After reading I'm loving the first era of Mistborn, I want to delve more into his books, and I feel like this is also a good one that isn't like too intimidating because he has a lot of books that are like big, and of course again fits the theme for this video really well, so I'm very excited to give it a read. And yeah, that's the setup for this video. I hope you enjoy, and let's get into the reading portion. Hi, I'm gonna say new location unlocked, but it's not. This is my mom's room. I filmed here before, but currently we're in a heat wave, and for some reason it's a heat wave in May. We decided on that, but that's besides my point. But for some reason my room in our apartment is just like the center of everything hot, and it's just unbearably hot in there, while here it's doable. So I moved my ass here thanks to my mom. She was very kind to let me just hang out in here during the day, but I'm here as well with a reading update for you because I am 100 pages into Emily Wilde, and I'm not gonna say the rest because I'm really struggling with pronouncing the title, but you should have just seen the title card so you know what I'm talking about. I think it's a heat wave melting my brain why I'm not being able to pronounce words at this moment in time. But yeah, but in this book we follow Emily Wilde, who is a scholar researching fairies, and this book kind of starts off with her being in a process of writing a book. She's writing a book about like the different species of fairies and stuff like that, and there is this one species that is commonly referred to as like the hidden ones, and it's like a very small town, and it's just like a very under-researched, very under known about species of fae, else why they're called the hidden ones, and she thinks will be like the cherry on top of the pie for her book. So she goes to the small town to research the hidden folk, but she's really having trouble kind of connecting with the townspeople and like, you know, being able to talk to them about like different stories going around and other things you might need to research fae. So that's an issue. And that's when her academic rival Wembleby, that's a guess, my brain is not computing, I'm so sorry, he arrives to the small town, and he's like a very charming person, so he very much kind of like is able to talk to the townspeople very easily, and they end up kind of working together because of that. There's just one issue, is that Emily has always kind of been convinced that Wembleby is a fae. She hasn't been able to prove it, and he obviously hasn't said anything about it, so that's also kind of like an undercurrent like little thing going on in the book. And that's kind of the plot. I mean, it's very much cozy fantasy in that sense, where I feel like not a whole lot happens, yet it's still like a very intriguing read, at least so far 100 pages in. I have been having a lot of fun with it, and I think it is very interesting. And despite the heat wave melting my brain, I am reading this like relatively easily. Like, yes, there was some academic language, but I expected it to be much more dense than it is being, so I'm having a good time with that. I also just think Emily's brain is very interesting. I don't know if that makes sense, but this is kind of written in a diary format, and she oftentimes like makes connections to things, like references, literary things. Yeah, like that doesn't I don't know how you got from where we are at right now to that point, but I really enjoy that aspect of her, the way she just immediately, when someone mentions something, she's like, that's like, and then goes on like a whole academic rant. I really like that to it. I feel like the narrative is really showing her personality really well, and I'm having a hard time putting it into words because my brain is not functioning. I don't know why. I feel like my brain's functioning all fronts when I turn on the camera, and all of a sudden it just like stops working. But oh well. It's a heat wave, it really is. But I feel like Emily Wilde's personality shines through really well. The way this is with it, and I really like that. Also really like her dynamic with Bumblebee, just because I think it's very interesting. It's like obvious that there was a hint of dislike there, but there's also a camaraderie there, a friendship and a closeness that Emily might not fully want to embrace, but I really like that aspect to it. And I also just like the way they kind of joke around with each other sometimes a little bit. I don't know, I really like the dynamic, and I can totally see how so many people love their relationship, even if right now there's nothing fully ship worthy about them just yet. I feel like their friendship is shining through in a way that is making me really enjoy reading about them. And also just think the world that the Fawcett has created in this is so interesting, and I'm very excited to learn more about the Fae and the things going on around that, I guess. Okay, so I'm 200 pages in now, and I'm fine. I wanted to give you like a great update saying like, oh my god, I love it. I'm still enjoying it, I'm still liking it, and one of my favorite things in this book definitely is Emily, and just her quick wit in a sense. Like, her instincts based on like her knowledge are so great, and I love the way that that's written, how it's also being acknowledged by the characters. Also, by the way, his name is Wendell Bumblebee. I for some reason smushed those two names together into whatever I said earlier. I apologize. I also like how through the narrative his feelings for Emily is kind of like showing, and especially because there was one insert into Emily's journal that is actually written by Wendell, and it's so obvious there. I love it. One thing I don't like though is where I just stopped reading. There was like a love confession scene, and I feel like that came out of nowhere and felt very abrupt, and I feel like, I don't know, I wanted this to maybe be a bit more of a slow burn in that sense, but there we go. But for the rest, I'm having a good time with it still, but I think this is probably gonna be a 3 just because I'm not like wowed by it. But I'm really enjoying this, and I will definitely continue on with the series, I think, depending on how these last couple of pages go, of course. Hi, so I have finished Emily Wilde's, and I do have to say that last like 100 pages had such a tonal shift. Like, oh my god, I feel like the vibe of the book just completely changed, and that last little bit made it a little bit disorienting to read, and it kind of makes sense with what happens. I'm not gonna spoil that for you obviously, but with the mindset that Emily is in and the events of it, it does make sense. But I don't know, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, especially because I also feel like it was all just a little bit too fast-paced and felt a bit rushed. So I don't know, I am settling on 3 stars with this. I'm honestly, I do honestly have to say that that ending was my only complaint of this book, plus the underdeveloped romance. Like, I also have questions there. For the rest, I actually had a really good time with this book, and I'm like trying not to let like the mind fog of the heat wave currently influence my thoughts on this book. So I do think like a 3 is pretty solid. I really like Emily, I really like Wendell, I like this world that's set up, and I am very intrigued to keep on reading in this series, so that will be in the future. So I'm 100 pages into Bookshops and Bonedust, and I really like it as well, more than I was expecting to, because I did like Legend of Lattes. I believe I gave it 4 stars. I don't remember, but I also don't remember a lot from the book. I feel like it didn't stay with me over time, and this book is definitely just like vibing with me more, at least 100 pages in. But in this book, we follow Viv, who's also the main character of Legend and Lattes. It just takes place before Legend and Lattes, as she is still part of like this mercenary group. But at the start of the book, she gets a nasty leg wound, so they kind of continue on without her, and she's now in a small town, recovering, waiting until they come back around. And during this time, she becomes friends with the person that runs the local bookstore, which is the store is kind of like on its last legs, but Viv kind of discovers a joy for reading this way, but also helps patch up the store. And that's like the basic synopsis for this book, and it is really cute. I feel definitely more so the cozy vibes with this one, and I don't know if that's because book stuff is more my thing than coffee shop stuff. Which Legend of Lattes is Viv opening one coffee shop after leaving the mercenary business. I feel like obviously bookish stuff is a bit more my vibe. I really just like this book a lot. I like the friendship between Fern, who runs the bookshop, and Viv. I think that's really fun. I think there's some side elements as well that are really fun. I like this town a lot. I feel like the small town vibes are immaculate. I really like that. And yeah, I don't know. I can't explain why I'm liking this more than Legend and Lattes, but I am. I'm just having a fun cozy time. So I'm gonna keep reading and then we'll see how it goes. So I'm at page 200 and truly I'm flying through this book. I have to say, just plot wise, we have had an element introduced because the fight that Viv was involved in when she got wounded was on a quest to kind of defeat this necromancer. And throughout the book now, there have been like little hints towards the necromancer maybe approaching the town that she's staying in now. So there's like a tiny little subplot as well. And I think that's interesting. I feel like that was my main issue with Legends and Lattes as well, that I feel like that extra plot there that is a bit more fantasy, less cozy, I wasn't interested in. I remember that I thought it was a bit boring compared to I more wanted to focus on like the fun cozy stuff. I remember that now that I am reading this, but I feel like it is more well integrated within this book and I like that storyline. I'm kind of curious to see where that's gonna go, but all the bookish stuff is still my favorite. Like, oh my god, like this generally feels like a book lover's dream. Like the way they talk about books and not just reading, but also kind of with Fern's kind of love for selling books, I guess, or like matching the perfect book with the reader. It's just it's so lovely and I'm just really loving that. And I really just love the small town and like the different characters we get in it. There's also like an adorable romance in this with Viv and one of the side characters. It's not much, but like it's cute and I like it. And yeah, I don't know, I'm really having a good time with this. I still think this will probably be a 4, but I definitely prefer this much more over Legends and Lattes, and I'm having a blast of a time. Okay, so I finished Bookshops and Bonedust, and I'm not gonna lie, the ending made me just a little bit emo. I just think the ending of this book was just very bittersweet, with obviously Viv moving on to other things. It made me a bit emo, but before that I do have to say that the old necromancer storyline, how that resolved, I don't love. I mean, I don't hate it, but I just don't think Travis Baldree is the best at writing action scenes, at least not for me. So I feel like that whole scene was a little bit confusing and the way things wrapped up and didn't really grab me the way I wanted to. But like the actual wrap up of Fifth story was so nice, and like the like when I say I got a bit emo, I'm mainly talking about the epilogue. Like Jesus, that that hit on the field, and it actually makes me very excited to read the other book in the series, which is Witchens and Bread Knives, I think. But that one follows Fern. I just looked it up. Very excited about it. I love Fern. But yeah, this is a 4-star, just like I predicted 100 pages ago. This is honestly the first time I've read a cozy fantasy where I feel like this made me feel the way cozy fantasy makes most people feel, where I just felt like this was very delightful, a very nice, comforting read. I feel like I haven't really had that with the cozy fantasy genre, which is why I wanted to try and do this vlog, and I was apprehensive about the whole genre a little bit, see my taste within it, and I'm glad that I did find a feeling with this book. Hello, I am 100 pages into Tress of the Emerald Sea. I'm so dizzy today. I don't know what it is. That's also why I've been like moving pretty slowly through this book. I feel like my brain is occupied, you know. But I'm really enjoying Tress. I don't know how much I would call it cozy fantasy, but considering it has been pitched to me as a cozy fantasy several times. It's fun enough for this book. But in this book we follow Tress, and she lives on this island and it's surrounded by the Emerald Sea, hence the title. And on this planet the seas are actually made of like this dust, not, you know, water. But this dust, when it comes into contact with water, it will like sprout like vines and trees and stuff like that. So it's like incredibly dangerous considering humans are like mostly made up of water, you know. So if it comes into contact with like your eye or anything, it will like. So the people on this island are like heavily encouraged, not heavily encouraged, they are not allowed to leave the island at all. And Tress has always been like kind of fine with that because she loves to live on the island. She's nothing against it. She has no real desire for like adventure or anything, so she's completely fine. And at the start of the book she has this friendship with this guy named Charlie, who always pretends to be like the gardener of the Duke, but Tress knows he's actually the son of the Duke, and that is comes mostly obvious when Charlie turns 17 and his father takes him on a voyage across the lands for him to marry a princess. And Tress and Charlie like have a bit of like, not really a romance, but like they do have feelings for each other, but like they haven't really like fully admitted it to each other before he leaves. So that's the thing. And a year after he leaves, the Duke returns with his heir and the heir's wife, and at first Tress is devastated because she didn't really expect Charlie to actually find a wife. But when they return, it's very obvious that the heir is not Charlie, it's someone else. And that makes Tress go out on a quest to try and find and save Charlie. So she ends up smuggling herself over the island and is now in a bit of a piratey seafaring adventure. And so far this is really fun, but I don't know if I would call it fantasy because there was like an undercurrent of like extreme darkness towards it. Like the pirate ship she's on currently, they're not the nicest people. There's some shit going on there. So I don't know, just like the whole concept of these seas and the dust that has made out of is also like fucking terrifying to like seafaring on now. So I don't know necessarily what this is called, a cozy fantasy, but I can't say I'm having a blast with this book. It's narrated by a character named Hoyt, who I have read is a recurring character to the Cosmere, but you don't really need to know him to understand this book because I don't really know him. I read up on the wiki and I saw that in the books that I have read from the Cosmere, which is the Mistborn trilogy, the first one, first era, he makes like very small, like almost unnamed appearances, and I'm not having any trouble following this book at all. But his narration is so funny and so fun, and I genuinely chuckled several times while reading this book because of his narration to this book. Really like that. But like on top of that, I also just really like Tress as a character. I feel like she's a very smart character in a way that's maybe a little bit unexpected or like a little bit atypical, and I just really love how just determined she is with her goal and trying to find Charlie, trying to save him from whatever might be going on. I think that's really, I think that makes her a really engaging character. I just love kind of the connection she also just creates with different side characters. I think the world is very interesting, and I'm having a good time. I feel like it's a fun adventure story, not necessarily like a cozy read so far, but I'm having a blast and I am gonna continue reading. Hi, so it is the next day. Yesterday with the dizziness, I still don't know what that was. I feel like I was so tired and I went very slowly through my book, and I think I read like one more chapter after everything new, and I was just like, let's just take a break and we'll see where we go from there. And then I didn't read anything for the rest of the day because my brain it was not functioning. But I can say today I'm feeling better, although we are getting into like a really bad part of the heat wave right now, hence why I'm wearing like a tank top. But I am reading and I got to page 200 of Tress of the Emerald Sea, of course, and I'm loving this so much. Like I especially love Tress so much. Like I said in my previous update, she's so smart and I love her ability to adapt. Like when she learns like new info, when she gets into like a new situation, her brain is like immediately calculating how still to get to our final destination with all of these new things in it. Then at the same time, you know, she comes from a sheltered place on the island. She lives on a very small island. She hasn't had many experiences, so there is a lot of things she doesn't know about, and I do feel like that balance is kept realistically, where there's a lot of moments where other characters have to teach her things, but still her intelligence is within taking that information and like recalculating again how to get to her end goal. On top of that, I also just think this is a great adventure story. I feel like this oftentimes gets put in the cozy category, at least I think this is why it's done, because technically this is a low stakes plot. Like the only danger that's happening is towards Tress. It's not really like any world saving situations or anything, so I think that's why it's often put in that cozy vibe. But I feel like there's a lot of dangerous situations going on, like even just like I said again in my previous update, like these dust seas. Like I don't know, I would never want to be a pirate or like a seafaring person at all in this world, because what do you mean? They sound terrifying, and the more you learn about them, because every sea also has like different qualities and different dangers, y'all. I truly don't see how this could ever be considered cozy, because I'm terrified for Tress' life throughout the entirety of this book. But I do think it is a very fun adventure book. Like the adventure in this is great, the stakes in this are great, even if they are just pertaining to a cast of characters, not necessarily any outside dangers. And it's just a very compelling read in that sense, where you're just on the edge of your seat the entire time, kind of trying to like seeing how Tress will get herself out of like these dangerous situations, and if she will be able to make it till her end goal, you know. And I think that makes it like such a captivating read. Like I said, I love Tress. I really like the cast of side characters as well. She has a like animal companion, let's say, within this web that is able to talk, and I really love him as well. Like even like her crewmates, I feel like are so interesting, and the way it's written is just great. Like I said, I love Hoyt's narration, and yeah, I don't know, I'm having a blast with this, and I have like 150 pages left of this book, I believe, and I'm very excited to read that and then tell you about my full thoughts on this book. But I'm loving this. I just don't necessarily think it fits the cozy genre. Hi, I'm sorry for the horrendous lighting, but I wound up finishing my book much later than I expected, and it's too hot to put the it's too hot to put the overhead light on, because that radiates heat, so I just have my phone's flashlight right next to the camera. Hello. It looks so weird, and I fear I'm blinding myself by having to look in that direction. But I did finish Tress of the Emerald Sea. Like I said, I finished this later than planned, just because I kind of got sucked into TikTok and I spent way too much time on there, so I apologize. But I have now finished this book, and I really like this. I give this 4 stars because I do think towards the ending it dragged a little bit for me. I feel like the ending could have been a bit tighter, a bit neater. But in typical Brandon Sanderson fashion, there are elements towards the end that had me gagged, and that did kind of you know, help with my momentum a little bit. But I don't know, I feel like I was losing interest a little bit in the latter bit, which is sad, because I do think the resolution to the story is really well done. I have the epilogue right now in my brain, and that was such a delightful epilogue. Like, oh my god, had me blushing. But the rest of the story, like I said, wouldn't classify this as cozy fantasy maybe, but definitely like a very fun adventure with some pretty high stakes, even if the stakes are kind of more personal rather than world implications, if that makes sense. And I guess that, like I said before, I think that's why it's classified as cozy sometimes, because it doesn't have this wider world implications or like stakes. Is very focused on these characters, and I really like this cast of characters a lot, especially Tress. Like I said, I love her so much, and that rat companion that I talked about, ooh, love him as well. And if you know, you know, I loved Hoyt as well. I'm very curious to read more of the Cosmere that he appears in, because in this one he is cursed, so he doesn't really act like himself, but based on his narration, I'm just very curious to see more of him as a character as well. So it made me excited to read more Brandon Sanderson as well. So all good points. But yeah, this is definitely my favorite of the video. Like, it just barely isn't a 5, if that makes sense. Yeah, that is everything I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I do feel like I can say I'm not really cozy fantasy girly. It's something that I definitely feel after this video I will be less hesitant about picking up, but I don't think it's like something I'm like actively looking out for in books, if that makes sense. I have something more like a fun adventure like Tress is maybe more at my speed, and I kind of want more books like this now. But the like cozy warm feelings, I feel like that's something I still feel like I get more out of from contemporary than I do fantasy, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's the conclusion to this video. I hope you enjoyed. I had a 3 and 2 4s, so I would say this video is still a success. And if you have any recommendations for me, leave them in the comments for sure, because I definitely don't think my exploration of the cozy fantasy genre is done at all. I'm also starting to see points in my vision because of I'm not doing a great job like staring at a light, so I'm gonna wind this up. See you next time. Bye.